Suddenly, an unstoppable menace descends upon the world. Terrifying titans, resembling humans, but mercilessly crushing everything in their path. They wreak havoc without any sign of mercy or restraint. Today, we uncover the dark and hidden story of a brutal battle, a fight for survival where humanity struggles against these relentless giants. Let's begin this intense and haunting tale of extreme conflict. Hundreds of years ago, a terrifying tragedy struck the world. Giant creatures known as titans suddenly appeared, and within no time, they wiped out most of humanity. They looked like humans, but they were hundreds of feet tall. And worse, they didn't just kill people, they ate them like snacks. Screaming men and women were crushed in their jaws like roasted chickens, terrified and helpless. Humans did the only thing they could. They built enormous walls, so high, even the titans couldn't climb over. And then, they locked themselves in. It wasn't freedom, it was a giant prison, but at least it was safe. Over time, the titans began to disappear. Maybe they lost interest, or maybe they couldn't find more people to eat. Either way, the attack stopped, and 100 long years passed. Inside those walls, people slowly started to forget. Titans became bedtime stories, just scary tales to frighten children. Most believed the threat was gone forever, and if it ever returned, well, those mighty walls would protect them. At least, that's what they believed. But life inside the walls was far from perfect. People were trapped. They couldn't go out. They couldn't explore. Food was limited. Clothes were scarce. Even medicine and education were a luxury. The government, they had sealed the outer gates permanently, too afraid to risk another Titan attack. And within the walls, society was divided. The outer sector, filled with farmers, laborers, and the poorest families. The middle sector, home to workers and factory hands. And the innermost part, that belonged to the elite. Army officers, politicians, VIPs, they lived in comfort, while the rest struggled just to survive. But peace is never permanent. And soon, the people would realize the real nightmare was just beginning. Inside the walls, in the sector of workers and farmers, there lived a boy named Aaron. Unlike others, he never believed in the stories of the Titans. He thought the real monster wasn't outside the wall. It was the fear inside people's hearts. He believed people were prisoners of their own fear, and the day they overcame it, they would cross the wall and finally be free. Aaron often wondered what lay beyond those stone barriers. He didn't want to just survive. He wanted to see the world. That day, while Aaron was lost in thought, his best friend Jean came running toward him. He had built something, a strange little machine. Excited, Jean wanted to show it to Aaron, but while running, he accidentally bumped into a man. Jean ignored it and kept going. Soon, they met up with Mikasa, Aaron's closest friend, maybe even more. The three of them sneaked into a hidden spot. It was a place nobody visited anymore. Destroyed bomber machines lay scattered across the ground. Aaron loved that place, because from there, he could see almost everything inside the walls. But no matter how far he looked, his heart always looked beyond the wall. Jean showed Aaron the machine, something simple yet creative, but then a sudden realization hit them. The government had strict laws. No citizen was allowed to invent anything new. They believed inventions only led to accidents or rebellion, so building even a harmless machine could get them punished. Despite the risk, Aaron admired Jean's courage, and as they talked, it became clear Aaron deeply cared for Mikasa. In that quiet moment, Aaron made a decision. He wanted to cross the wall today, with his friends by his side. The three of them quietly snuck closer to the edge of the wall. There weren't many guards nearby. Because the area was full of ruined bomber parts, the guards usually stayed far away from it. Taking advantage of the moment, the kids moved fast. They were just about to touch the wall, when suddenly voices shouted from behind. Several army officers came running toward them. They were caught. Fear gripped them, but fate had a different plan. One of the officers recognized Aaron. He was a distant relative, someone with influence. Because of that, they were let go. No harsh punishment, no jail, but a warning. Never try it again. But in Aaron's heart, a flame had already been lit, and that fire would soon change the fate of the entire world. Just as they were talking to each other, a deep rumbling suddenly shook the ground beneath them. The entire area began to tremble violently, as if nature itself was warning them of something unimaginable. Before they could even make sense of what was going on, a terrifying sound started emerging from the other side of the massive wall. It was loud, harsh, and filled with dread. Then, out of nowhere, a colossal creature began to rise above the wall. What they saw left them frozen in fear. This thing wasn't just big, it was gigantic. taller than the wall itself, and unlike any Titan they had seen before. Its body was completely skinless, its flesh glowing like molten fire, and every movement it made radiated destruction. Within moments, the fiery beast lifted its foot and began hammering at the wall, kicking it with the force of an earthquake. The military officers quickly realized the danger and ordered an attack to protect the only barrier standing between the Titans and humanity. But before the soldiers could fire, one of them rushed in with bad news. The government had strictly forbidden the use of heavy explosives. While the officers were still arguing about what to do, the monstrous creature suddenly vanished into thin air. Dust and debris hung heavy in the air, but as it slowly settled, the soldiers noticed the horror. The Titan's kick had cracked the wall. A huge chunk of it had collapsed, leaving an open path into the human settlement. And from that broken gap, the real nightmare began. Dozens of Titans, huge, deformed, smiling grotesquely, started marching into the city. Their expressions were disturbingly cheerful, as if they were excited about the slaughter. The army officers, ignoring any formal command, opened fire immediately, launching bombs with all their might. But it was useless. These Titans weren't ordinary, they were invincible. Gunshots did nothing. Even bombs, which exploded with thunderous force, couldn't stop them. Within seconds, the Titans healed themselves as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, the civilians inside the walls began panicking. Chaos broke loose. People screamed, ran, pushed, and stumbled over each other, desperately trying to find safety. But by then, hundreds of Titans had already made their way inside. They surrounded the people from all sides like predators closing in on prey. And then the unthinkable began. The Titans grabbed helpless people, biting them, tearing them limb from limb. They crushed human bodies as if they were just insects underfoot. The scenes were beyond horrifying. Even seasoned army officers began losing their will to fight. Many of them, instead of facing the inevitable fate of being eaten alive, chose to take their own lives. Meanwhile, the Titans tore through the city like it was made of paper. Entire buildings crumbled. Homes were destroyed in seconds. It felt as if these ancient, starving monsters had finally found an endless feast. In a desperate attempt to survive, civilians began rushing toward the most secure building in the town, the Central Hall. Among them were Eren and Mikasa, running through the chaos, trying to stay together. But fate had other plans. In the middle of the crowd, a woman carrying a child fell to the ground. Nobody dared to help. Everyone was too busy saving themselves. But Mikasa couldn't look away. She ran back to save the child, and in doing so, got separated from Eren. Eren, pushed by the crowd, managed to reach the hall, but Mikasa was left outside with the child in her arms. Realizing she hadn't made it, Eren tried again and again to go back out. But the people inside had locked the door tightly, refusing to open it no matter how much he begged. And outside, a monstrous Titan slowly moved toward Eren, its shadow stretching over the ground like a living nightmare. But before Eren could react, that terrifying Titan snatched Mikasa right out of sight. Watching all this from the window, Eren's heart burned with helpless rage. He could no longer just stand there, so the moment he found even a sliver of an opening, he bolted outside, driven by sheer desperation. But Mikasa was nowhere to be seen. The area was already drowned in chaos. The scent of humans inside the hall had drawn the Titans like bloodthirsty predators. In moments, several Titans surrounded the building from all sides. Then, with a deafening crash, they smashed through the roof. The people inside had no time to escape. They were grabbed, torn apart, and devoured mercilessly. After consuming so many lives, the Titans finally slowed down, as if their monstrous hunger had been briefly satisfied. And amidst the wreckage stood poor Eren, broken, shaken, and consumed by grief. He staggered forward, unsure where to go. But something inside him had already changed. The story now jumps 2 years ahead. In those years, the third sector, where the farmers and workers once lived, was completely overrun and reduced to rubble by the Titans. Only a handful of people managed to survive the horror. Those survivors had taken refuge in the second sector, living inside various industrial facilities. Thankfully, the walls of this sector were still intact, offering a temporary shield from further Titan assaults. But safety came with a cost. The population kept growing rapidly, and soon a devastating food crisis broke out. Within months, hundreds of people started dying from hunger. But that wasn't all. Fights over food turned deadly. Now, to save what was left of humanity, they had no choice but to reclaim Sector 3. That's when the army made a plan. They formed a special unit, trained for 2 long years to kill Titans. Eren and his friend Jisung were part of this elite team. They both burned with one goal: to avenge Mikasa. The commander then revealed their mission. It would be a nighttime operation, because at night, Titans can't see clearly. Using this window, they would blast the broken upper part of Sector 3's wall. The debris would seal the breach, preventing more Titans from getting inside. Once sealed, the soldiers would enter and eliminate the remaining Titans. To make this possible, they had developed a powerful gear system. With wires shot to the walls, they could swing through the air at high speed. And after countless studies, they had discovered a critical weakness, a spot at the nape of their neck. If that spot was slashed, the Titan would instantly die. According to the plan, that night, under the cover of darkness, the soldiers began their silent march, heading straight toward the broken wall of Sector 3. They carried explosives, ready to blow the wall shut to block more Titans from coming in. But halfway there, a strange sound stopped them in their tracks. A child crying. It was faint, but real. They thought, could it be? Could a human child still be alive inside Titan territory? Moved by hope, they followed the sound. But what they found wasn't human. It was a Titan child. At first, it looked harmless, until it noticed them. The moment its eyes locked onto the soldiers, its instinct kicked in. It lunged toward them, but stumbled and let out a piercing, night-shattering scream. That cry was heard by every Titan in the area. One by one, hundreds of Titans began to stir and charge straight toward the team. The soldiers were trapped. To make things worse, their commander had already retreated with the explosives. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and completely vulnerable. But then, like lightning through a storm, a lone figure sliced into the chaos. Captain Shikishima. With unmatched skill, he began taking down Titans one after another, 10 of them gone within minutes. Soon, a second figure joined the fight, a woman, fearless, fast, and vicious. Together, the two soldiers fought like demons, slaughtering every Titan in sight. And then, Eren saw her face. It was Mikasa, his childhood friend. She was alive. 2 years ago, when everyone thought she had died, Captain Shikishima had saved her from the jaws of death. He trained her, turned her into a soldier, a warrior, a force of vengeance. But something was different. Even after seeing Eren again, Mikasa showed no emotion, no recognition, no warmth. Still, there was no time for emotions. They had a war to survive. So Eren went to Shikishima. He asked him to teach him how to fight like him, how to kill like him. But Shikishima simply said, "You've had your training. Now use your rage. Let it all out and attack. No one can stop you when you fight with everything you've got." Before Eren could respond, the army general returned. He apologized, not for abandoning them, but for protecting the explosives, because without them, they would never be able to seal the wall, and the Titans would keep flooding in. After the general quietly left the scene, Eren couldn't hold back anymore. He went looking for Mikasa, maybe for answers, or maybe just to see if she still remembered who he was. But what he saw shattered him. Mikasa was sitting with Captain Shikishima, close, too close. Their eyes met. And for a brief moment, Eren saw something that cut deeper than any Titan's claw. He thought maybe they were in love. Maybe in those 2 lost years, Mikasa had moved on. Without him. Overwhelmed by pain, Eren stumbled outside, tears streaming down his face, screaming into the night. But while Eren was lost in heartbreak, the general had already rallied the remaining soldiers. With no time to waste, he ordered the explosives to be reloaded, determined to complete the mission. But then, without warning, a new wave of Titans descended on them. Screams echoed as some soldiers were devoured. Among the victims was the husband of a woman named Yuzu. She watched in horror as her world collapsed. Grief consumed her, but madness soon followed. And in the chaos, a thief appeared out of nowhere. He stole the explosives and tried to escape. Seeing this, Yuzu didn't hesitate. Fueled by rage, she ran straight toward the vehicle, leaped on, and threw the thief off with her bare hands. The soldiers thought they had just saved the mission, that the explosives were finally safe. But Yuzu had something else in mind. Without warning, she set the explosives on fire and drove them straight into the Titans. In a thunderous explosion, flames engulfed the monsters. She did it out of pain, out of vengeance. But sadly, even that wasn't enough. The Titans regenerated, as if nothing had happened, and the only real damage was to the humans. Because now, with the explosives gone, they had no way to seal the wall again. Seeing all of this, Eren felt something inside him die. Every ounce of mercy, every bit of compassion was gone. He let the rage consume him, and without fear, he charged into battle. With raw fury, he began slaying titans one after another. From a rooftop above, Captain Shikishima watched and smiled. He was proud. Eren had finally awakened. But then, disaster struck. A titan lunged and tore through Eren's leg, ripping it off completely. Eren collapsed helpless. He thought it was over, but before he could even cry out in pain, he saw something worse. His friend Jean caught in the grip of a titan. The other soldiers rushed to help, but this time, fate wasn't on their side. The titan was just about to swallow Jean whole. His mouth opened wide and the air around seemed to freeze. But at the very last second, Eren, with nothing but raw desperation in his eyes, sprang forward like lightning. He lunged at the beast with all he had, managing to push Jean out of harm's way. But in doing so, the titan clamped its jaws around Eren's arm and with one terrifying crunch, bit it clean off. And before anyone could react, Eren disappeared into the titan's mouth, swallowed whole. Inside the beast, everything was dark. The air was thick, and his body began to melt away in the stomach's acid. It was agony beyond words. Outside, Mikasa saw it all. She had watched the boy she cared for disappear, and something inside her broke. With rage boiling inside, she charged at the titan. Her blade gleamed in the sunlight, but just as she swung it, the mechanism jammed, and before she could recover, she fell. Hard. Lying helpless, she saw the same titan that devoured Eren begin to advance towards her. Its eyes locked onto her like a predator, but just when everything seemed lost, something strange started happening inside the titan. It staggered, gripped its own belly, and then, boom! Its chest burst open from the inside, and from the flames and blood, a monstrous new figure emerged. A titan, but not like the others. This one was massive, towering over the rest, and it was fast. Before the soldiers could even process what they were seeing, this new titan attacked the others. With brutal efficiency, it ripped them apart, slashing, tearing, crushing. In moments, dozens of titans were dead. The soldiers stood frozen, watching, trying to understand what they were witnessing. And then someone whispered, "Could it be Eren?" The titan finally collapsed, its energy spent, its body steaming. Captain Shikishima didn't hesitate. He told Mikasa, "Cut near the back of the neck." Now, Mikasa obeyed, slicing through the flesh. And from the steaming remains, Eren emerged, his arms and legs regrown, restored, alive. Captain Shikishima simply smiled, as if none of this surprised him, as if he knew all along. And with that, the story came to a shocking close. But this is only the beginning, because in the next chapter, we'll discover where the Titans truly came from, and why humanity's greatest enemy may have once been human too. Friends, how did you like this story? Please make sure to comment and let me know. We'll meet again with a new story, a new video. Thank you.